Hello and welcome to another podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Today I will be digging into the topic of perfection and quality and what makes a podcast good enough to listen to. If you're brand new to me, I've been podcasting since 2004. I launch podcasts. More information at the end about that. But let's jump into this topic of perfection. Now, it's been said by many people, including me, that perfect is the enemy of done. And I understand the concept. I understand the spirit. And I think I buy into the spirit of that particular argument. What it's trying to say is there reaches a time when you are going so far down that I can just change one more thing, edit one little detail, make one more tweak to make it a little bit better, that you eventually don't launch. You stop. You continue down that path and you never get to the ship it, the launch it, the publish it phase. Happens to authors, happens to podcasters, happens to every creative person. It happens to business people. We strive for perfection when we should be trying to get things launched. Okay. Here's where the pontification begins. That's a false dichotomy. It leads people into bad decision mode. And that bad decision mode is launching without any attention to quality. People think that I can either be perfect, which means they then relate to good quality, or I can just be done. And since content is king, quality doesn't matter. I think that's a mistake. I think, yes, you can go way too far down the perfection to where you may get to a perfection paralysis type of situation. But it is all too easy to go on the other side of that and assume that quality doesn't really matter. And in podcasting, I think that's a big deal. There's a lot to get over. There's a lot to understand. Now, those of us that have been doing it for 15 years now, we get it. We understand the process. We know all the bits and pieces, and we know it's work. We know that it's work. There are a lot of new companies, new players in the podcasting space that are capitalizing on the fact that it's still a lot of work to put out a show. Some of these have been around for a very long time. Blog Talk Radio, for example, or a variety of other services to where you can use your phone, and back in the day that meant picking up a phone with a rotary dial. Okay, I'm being a little disingenuous, but dialing a phone on your landline, calling in, and hosting an entire show from your microphone on your phone itself, not actually something like an SM7B. And there are lots of these companies now that have come out that are enabling it, making it so much easy to podcast just from your mobile device. Anchor is one of those solutions. Pick up your phone, start talking into it. We'll give you some quick tools so that you can add in stingers and you can add some bed music and all these things live. And when you're done, at the end, you have a show where you can talk about whatever you want to. And the theory is that all of these things help people get launched, leave out a lot of the questions about making it quality, but make a different interface so that no one's spending hours, and it takes hours, behind an editing suite to make a podcast. And I love the fact that these are pushing more people into this space of creating audio content, podcasting, creating content for Alexa devices and other smart speakers. I love all of that. What I don't love is that all too often they sound like garbage. They just sound like garbage. They sound unplanned, like this, and I get the irony. I get the irony of what I'm speaking about here. But they just aren't as professional as they could be. They're not as perfect as they could be. Now listen, if you just want to have fun behind a microphone, if you just want to have fun with some friends, and you have something that you don't really see long-term growing legs, you want to experiment, you want to play, by all means, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. But I'm telling you, it's not as challenging as you might think to strive for that better perfection goal. So before you go write a Medium article about how amazing podcasting is and you can expand your business with it by using a free tool you got on your phone, you might want to make sure that show that you put out actually sounds good, because it probably doesn't. Before you go and invest your company's money in putting out a show and hiring a producer and doing all this work, and you insist on using a crappy microphone you bought at your local Best Buy that's designed for some consumer level of just talking in with whatever random noises come on the background. Yeah, don't do that. Really don't do that. If you want your show to sound good, it's not hard. You know, there are some people, I'm one of them, who have been podcasting with professional equipment since 2004. We could afford it in 2004. It's gotten better, and in many cases a lot cheaper. The barrier to entry to have a professional sound, from the microphone you use, to the software that you use to record, to everything else that you do, it is not hard to do. You don't have to sound, well, amateur. Again, I've got nothing wrong with amateurs, but if your goal is to make a quality product, it should sound good. Now, yes, I recognize many of the popular shows out there are recorded on just crappy equipment and don't really care all that much about quality. But that's because they're leaning heavily on an existing audience base. People who care deeply about the person behind the microphone. They are very happy to forgive any problems, mistakes, just low quality, because they really want to hear that person talk. They really, really do. But if you are trying to reach a new audience beyond your group of circle, beyond your friends, beyond your sycophants that are already around you, you have to make it sound good. Because there are plenty of examples of really good quality content out there for the listening. Why should I listen to you ramble on for 2 hours on top of your microphone like this? I don't know who you are, so I'm not going to do that. Edit, get good quality equipment, make it sound good. Perfection is not the enemy of podcasting. It is the ultimate goal. You should strive to be more perfect. Create a more perfect union. There's the podcast called More Perfect. My wife loves it. Try to be more perfect with your show, especially if you want your show to go better, to go further, to move on. Instead of trying to find cheaper and quicker and easier ways to do things, those are all fine goals. But really take a critical look at the quality, the actual observable, listenable quality that you have. Does it sound good? Not good enough. Does it sound good? Are you doing things to strive towards that perfection mark, to make it sound better every single week? That might mean investing in $400 microphones. That likely means investing in high-quality headphones that were not made by a musician for musicians, that are made for studio monitoring. That might mean actually planning out what you want to say ahead of time. That might mean not using Google Hangouts to record your podcast. Notice this is not available. Did I say Google Hangouts? I meant Facebook Live. Not using any of those standard tools that aren't really designed to do the thing that they're designed to do. It's okay to strive for perfection and use tools that are appropriate to the end result you want. Perfect is not the enemy of podcasting. Perfection is the goal you should strive towards, even if you fall short. Do better next time. This has been another This has been another podcast pontification from me, Evo Terra. If you have questions, please email me, evo@podcastlaunch.pro. If you need help getting your business podcast to perfection, this is what I do. I launch podcasts for businesses and professional service providers. Please reach out to me. You can find more information, podcastlaunch.pro. I'll be back tomorrow for another one of these lovely podcast pontifications. See you then. Cheers.